Well, we like to go for a walk in the evening, pretty much every night in the winter or the summer or spring, fall. One of our favorite walks is around Stanley Park, and it's really the reason we bought here. Having this great park behind you is just tremendous, and as you go east, it opens up into a great huge marsh, and I just keep thinking it's like having Algonquin Park in your backyard. So this one evening in July, we were doing a walk just before dusk, and one of the features of the walk is to look into the marsh and see if you can spot the beaver. Well, we've been doing this for years. There's been beavers, dams up against the culvert. We've noticed that the beavers come and go. Didn't really think too much about it. This night we walked by, and sure enough, there's the beaver bobbing along. And my wife happened to notice that he wasn't moving, and he seemed to be bobbing for air every minute or so, but always within like a 2 or 3 foot radius.
And that's when I said, I think that beaver is stuck. We need to go get help, and we need to get help now, because it was suffering.
As we're pulling in our driveway, we see Carolyn and Doug Knutson looking like they needed something.
Wanted to know if we had a kayak. Just picked them up, got home with them at 11 o'clock the night before. They've been bored for 2 years.
They brought their truck with the kayak. We put it in the water, and by this time it's pitch dark. The mosquitoes are thick.
So we did get Doug out into launch him from the shore into the little creek area, I guess it would be, and up. He came alongside the beaver.
I honestly didn't know what we were supposed to do. I paddled out towards the beaver. He was in such a panic, he thumped into the bottom of the kayak, almost felt like he was going to upset me.
That him hit the boat?
And then finally I paddled up right beside him, and he came up just like this, and just frantic, looking in. I'll never forget the look in his eyes, just frantic to get out of that water. And I didn't know, I guess you had brought the gloves by this point. I had gloves, but I said, should I pick him up? Should I haul him into the kayak? He almost came up on his own. I realized, they have sharp claws, they have sharp teeth, maybe not a wise idea. We had a boat hook with us, and I started fishing around the bottom and hooked something and brought up a wire. And I thought, well, this is it, he's caught on a wire.
I looked to my right at the fence, and there was a wire on the fence, and it was a very thick wire. So I thought, maybe this has something to do with it. So I started to pull this wire. He said that you're pulling us all that way, if the beaver's coming that way. So I stopped, because I wasn't sure if the wire was attached to his foot, was caught on it somehow. I don't know. And it wasn't until then that Doug, now that he's close, he's fairly close to me now in front, that he reaches and pulls up the tail, because the beaver it was scared and wanted to head to the rushes. He had the tail of the beaver. He says, look at the size of this tail. And then he pulls it up and he goes, there's a trap on the beaver's foot. And we all just kind of stepped back and went, can't believe it. There's a trap.
So right away, the situation changed. We know this is intentional. This was a set trap. And how we got the trap open, I still don't know how it was done. The thing was incredibly strong. There's 2 springs on either side. I imagine you have to stand on them or use both hands to open it.
Doug had said, I don't know how to open this trap. And I'm like, I don't know how to open it either. And he wasn't, 20 seconds, and he figured out how to release the snaps, and out went the foot.
That the beaver pulled his leg out and scrambled up on shore, and the poor thing sat there panting and gasping for breath.
He was surrounded. We were in his space, and he was not concerned the slightest about us.
And he was making this sound like a motor. And from the kayak, I said, I couldn't really tell if that was coming from the road or somewhere else.
I distinctly remembered Doug saying, "Where's that noise coming from?" It was this really heavy breathing, it was a terrible noise. And I said, "That's coming from the beaver, Doug." And he couldn't believe it.
In the picture, you can actually see that his leg is damaged. It was bleeding. And we didn't know if it was mangled, if it was broken, what the condition was. I backed the kayak away, and as soon as I did, he plopped in the water, and that was it. That's the last we saw of him that night.
So now we're just kind of doing some exploration as to what it was caught on and how it was held there. So we pulled a rather large boulder with this very heavy cable wrapped around it and a chain also attached to it, and the trap attached to the chain. So we got that up onto shore, and we were all looking at it, and I still can remember Doug looking at the trap and trying to figure out how he opened it in the short time that he had it, and he couldn't open it. And I laughed when he said, "How did I open this before and I can't open it now?"
I knew nothing about trapping before this.
And I didn't know anything either.
To me, it looked like something a poacher would have set out.
What'd you think, Susan, when you saw it?
Well, when I saw the trap, I thought this just kind of comes from like medieval times. Like I've never seen a trap, so that's what came to my mind was, where did this thing come from?
That beaver had to have been in extreme pain. If a grown man can't open that trap, that's pinched, that's quite a trap.
Apparently this was a legal trap, and it's what is called a kill trap or a drowning trap. And this is apparently how beavers are managed in Ontario or Canada. A hole is created in the top of the dam, and the trap is set in shallow water, so as the beaver who is attracted to the sound of rushing water comes up to repair that spot, he steps in the trap. He right away bolts for deep water, and he carries the trap down a wire, which is a one-way wire, down to an anchor, and it's supposed to hold him there until he drowns. Now this is a humane kill trap, supposedly. It can take 15 minutes to drown a beaver this way, because beavers can hold their breath for a very long time. So you can just imagine the terror and the horror that they're going through trying to get out of this trap for 15 minutes. In our situation, this wasn't working at all. He could reach the top, it wasn't deep enough. He would have been left there for, I think it was over 12 hours at least, and would have been just left there to drown until he tired out.
I couldn't believe that that there was a trap. I mean, our kids have gone down and played in that area. Of course, you don't hear that until afterwards. There's dogs that probably go down in that area, so it could have been kids, dogs, anything that could have been in that trap and not the intended beaver.
I don't like this happening in my city. I don't like this happening in my backyard. It's not acceptable. Is this the way we treat our national symbol? We were all very disturbed by this incident. I went home and spent the rest of the night ranting on Facebook. That drew a lot of public attention, including attention from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. Both we and the Finkles were questioned by a conservation officer for hours and were under threat of charges. It is an offense in Ontario to tamper with a trap. Fortunately, no charges were laid against us. The good news, our beaver survived. The City of Belleville admitted responsibility for the trapping through their contracted trapper. The story spread fast and far. A crowd of eager beaver spotters on the sidewalk was a nightly occurrence. An online petition to stop trapping in the city spread like wildfire across the globe. Our beaver seemed no worse for wear for his ordeal and resumed building his dam. One witness claimed that the trapper had removed a dead beaver the night before our incident, possibly his mate. However, by mid-August, it was evident that our beaver was not alone. These dam builders were very good at their job. The water levels in the marsh were getting very high. This can lead to many problems. Beavers can cause a tremendous amount of damage. Neighboring homeowners watched the rising waters nervously. Some complained that their sump pumps were running non-stop.
I'm away.
You away?
I am away.
Chris and I decided to take advantage of the high water and look for the beaver's home. Beaver ponds support an incredible variety and abundance of life. Beavers are a keystone species that many other animals depend upon.
It's absolutely incredible. Oh, was that ever pretty? So the story in this, which I just realized, somebody just told me, they called this the drinking tree. Kids would come and they would be under here and they would drink, but this was never underwater before.
There's the structure. We found some sort of lodge, but it didn't look big enough for our beavers. That remained elusive.
You've hit a dead end there?
However, the dam's time was up. The entire marsh was drained, putting many of its inhabitants in deep stress. However, our beavers displayed a resilience they would demonstrate over and over again. Normally nocturnal and shy, they showed up in broad daylight in front of a large crowd of onlookers and started their work again. beavers continued their efforts through the night, yet their hard work was in vain.
You'll see behind me the apparatus which was installed last week was what they term as a beaver baffler. It's basically a long culvert that goes through an existing structure or a place where beavers have typically put dams in. It essentially allows the beavers to install a dam throughout that culvert here, but it also still allows the water levels to maintain an existing level. There was lots of things, if you Google beaver bafflers, different beaver techniques on management of them, there was lots of information available. So the beaver baffler starts out with kind of a corrugated apparatus that's caged. It allows debris not to flow through the culvert or to plug up, and then the long culvert extends past the end of this existing structure by 10 or 15 meters that'll allow the water to carry on downstream. The cages at the end actually protects the culvert inlet. They react to the sound of the water flows, so they would be first apt to actually cover that up. So the cages protects it from debris, and the beavers actually damming it up.
The beavers seemed intimidated by this new addition to their space, but eventually they started another dam, this time deep inside the culvert. This revealed a problem with the baffler. The pipe floated. The city removed the dam again and installed heavy concrete blocks to hold the pipe down. But these floated too. The dam was removed yet again, and struts were installed to hold the pipe down. This seemed to do the trick, and Belleville's beaver baffler was in operation. Finally came our moment at City Hall. What we witnessed was truly horrifying. Our rescue effort was emotionally and physically stressful, and we did not ask for this. There are other options for trapping readily available that potentially let people live in harmony with nature.
If Belleville proactively engages in strategies to allow nature and people to peacefully coexist, we could be a shining example to other municipalities across Canada. Therefore, we propose that the City of Belleville prohibit the use of body gripping traps, or at the very least, that they be used only as an absolute last resort.
We have a motion before us. I'll read it out. Oh, and Councillor McCaw's motion.
The use of leg hold traps and body gripping devices be banned within Ward 1 of the City of Belleville.
Okay, and we have a seconder.
The motion failed, but Council did pass a motion to receive a staff report on the issue.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to make a motion that we refer this for a complete staff report as to what the appropriate and humane legal trappings should be. So staff report on policies and procedures.
Thank you.
Sandy Pines Wildlife Refuge in Napanee often has to deal with the dark side of human-wildlife interaction.
You're the one who must have called me.
Absolutely everything from bullet wounds, attacked by other animals, hit by vehicles, bow and arrow. I've had a turkey vulture in here with an arrow sticking out of it, animals that are trapped. I've probably seen about 10 to 20 animals that have been either caught in snares, leg hold traps, or some kind of trap, or even abandoned in traps, still alive. I've had birds with their talons caught in a trap. There's been a mouse in the trap and they've come in for bait, and they've come in and caught their feet. We've had shot beavers, and we did have a beaver that was caught in a leg hold trap. And I've heard trappers tell me, I remember finding a trapper who was putting these in, and he said the beavers are used to holding their breaths for a long time when they're diving and in their beaver dam, and their carbon dioxide level builds up and they eventually just go to sleep. But I'd have to see that to believe it, because it seems to me as their carbon dioxide level rose, they would naturally surface to seek oxygen. And of course, when they're in the trap, they can't. If you're trapping in a city, you're not only trapping wildlife, you're trapping cats, you're trapping people's dogs, you're trapping all kinds of things that you don't need to trap.
The possibility of a child being caught in a trap is beyond contemplation. These kids were playing in the exact spot where the trap in question had been set. We have good examples to follow. The city of Guelph has Harper's bylaw, named for a dog killed in a trap. It bans trapping in all but emergency situations, and then lays out what those situations are and the procedures for safe and effective trapping. It takes the practice out of the shadows and places it under the control of elected officials. Oblivious to all of this, our beavers continued doing what they do best. Fall was a frenzy of activity. Beavers have to chew wood. Their razor-sharp teeth never stop growing. Trees provide their prime building materials, but trees are also a vital source of beaver food. They cut down trees, aspen and willow are favorites, taking away the upper branches to food caches for the winter. Wrapping trees in wire can protect them from those ravenous incisors. Despite the baffler's success, even in heavy rains, the dam was removed yet again, by the city and then by vandals. Without a dam to maintain a minimum depth of water beneath the ice, beavers will never survive the winter. In spite of everything that's been done to them, our beavers were to surprise us yet again. Far away from prying eyes, we found they had built a new dam, running hundreds of feet. And finally, their lodge. Their perseverance and ingenuity is truly inspiring. Hopefully, they will survive this harsh winter, but ultimately, their survival depends on us. As we continue to push further and further into the natural world, is it any surprise that nature sometimes pushes back? One way or another, we must learn to coexist.